Thanks, everyone. So my name's Sean Blanchfield. I'm CEO and co-founder of Jentic, an Irish startup. We're less than a year old. We have managed to get 4 million in VC funding to build a platform for business AI agents to get work done using APIs and workflows. Um, I previously co-founded a bunch of other companies, as you see here, including Forest, Demonware, where we built the back end for Call of Duty and got acquired by Activision. Um, Jolt, and a bunch more, and a slight sojourn in ad tech for 6 years as well. Um, I'm also honored to be a member of the government's AI Advisory Council. And today I'm delighted to have been asked to help kick this off. I think this is really exciting. You've got 2 weeks. I understand there's 500 of you, of Ireland's brightest minds and developers. There's a technology revolution raging outside, and you're all here to do one thing: build something great with AI. But this is a bit different to a normal hackathon. If you think this is a coding competition, I think you're probably already losing. My bet is that the winners here won't be the ones who code the most or code the best, but will actually be the ones who manage to barely code at all. It's quite different. I think what this competition is really about is learning to build in a brand new kind of way. And that's what I hope to talk about. Two parts. First, I'm going to give you my best effort at a playbook based on what we've discovered so far in Gentic on how to work the AI native way. And we try to be as reflective as possible about this, and hopefully you'll get something from that. This basically means not just using AI as a tool, but using it as a team of colleagues. Business planner, your researcher, your coder, your tester, your product manager, maybe even as a kind of co-founder. And that's quite a mental shift. And the second part is about what to build. There's been lots of ideas there about what to build, and there's certainly some parallels. But from my perspective, not everything makes sense to build anymore. Things have really changed with AI. And I think what you really need to aim for are applications that were only made possible by the arrival of AI. If you build the AI native way, then you're not only in a chance to win during these 2 weeks, but you'll know how to build during the AI age. And I think that's really your competitive edge, my competitive edge, all of our competitive edge from here on out. So let's kick off here. Um, just get my slides advancing. This is what I should have shown. The need for speed. Um, AI is just eye-wateringly fast. Every other day, it feels like there's another major advancement that requires you to rethink everything. But the speed is trickling down and speeding up all kinds of work in companies. It's not just automating the coding, but it's automating design, marketing, sales, finance, everything, one task, one item, one workflow at a time. And you need to go fast too, or you might find the market you were aiming for has moved on by the time you get there. So you need to find a way to quickly race into your market with a product and real engagement from users, and then find a way to keep on racing just to stay put. And this need for speed has some casualties. You can't afford anymore to build anything that you can more quickly borrow from somewhere else. Right? You need to, instead of building your own database or setting it up yourself, go find a database as a service and just move on. Or perhaps instead of writing some business logic in Python, you'll use N8N. Or instead of building that user interface from scratch, you'll use Lovable or one of its many competitors. Or instead of building that account system, you'll use Clerk or Auth0 or something like that. If you make a decision to build something that you could have more quickly gotten off the shelf, even if what you want to build might be slightly better, it could end up being a very costly mistake and could actually knock you out of the race. Um, Vibe coding, great phrase. A bit strange. We might be stuck with it, but I guess it's just going to have to do for now. AI coding agents are already better than most of us as human coders, and they're accelerating rapidly, right? Maybe you guys, like me, are amazing, amazing coders and can still solve often harder bugs or write more elegant code than the agents can. But the truth is that it's much faster than us. It knows nearly everything, and we can summon an army of them at will. So if you catch yourself or your teammate accidentally typing code down line by line, it's time for an intervention. But it's more than just about speed, vibe coding. What we found is when you start building with AI coding agents, you have an opportunity to elevate yourself above the weeds and stay there and try to operate consistently at that level. So the comparison is this: when programming transitioned from assembly language up to high-level languages, programmers could move up a level and spend time thinking about more abstract things like classes and object architecture, and leave many of the mechanical details of let me just fix my video. That's distracting. I'm back. Yeah, sorry. I leave many of the mechanical details of things like memory management behind. And with this leap with AI, code is like the new assembly language, and we're all leaving it behind. So our unique human contribution isn't producing the code, but thinking about the architecture and the product and the customer. You should expect this shift to be challenging if you haven't already started going through it. Just because you're a great coder, you might not initially be a great systems architect. Being great at that level requires keeping an open mind, having broad interests and a passion for solving problems for real people, not just solving problems for their own sake, for example. So a little bit of psychological distress as you make this transition is normal and healthy, and probably just means you're on the right track. But we all need to go through it. Practically speaking, well, we've heard of some great coding agents already from previous speakers, but there's many of them out there. Cursor in Windsurf, Claude Code, OpenAI, Codex, Gemini CLI, Klein, Ken4 Coder. There's lots of them out there. Some of them are IDEs with agents in them. So you're basically pair programming with the agent in the driving seat and you in the back seat. And the command line ones, the mode of interaction is more like they are junior programmers that you're delegating work to. But all of these are maturing incredibly rapidly. Um, as you spend more time working with these AI coders, I think all of us who do it, we realize there's a new discipline emerging here, a new kind of engineering. So we might not be in the code anymore, but we have something else we need to do as engineers. These agents have flaws and superpowers, and this new field is about figuring out how to deal with all those flaws, leverage all the superpowers, and then scale up as many of them as we can to put them all to work simultaneously. And that's not straightforward, but it's very effective when you figure it out. There's a new methodology, like I think this is maybe 2 weeks old, BMAD. You can look that up later. And it's an example of people trying to figure out how to merge software engineering and agile software development with multi-agent architectures to try to do this, to scale it up and take advantage of, the good bits while leaving the bad bits behind. It's actually such an active area that basically if you just jump in and start Googling any of this or adopting any of these practices, you will be immediately on the bleeding edge. Just to give you a flavor, what this often breaks down into is what we call prompt chaining. This is where you don't try to just single shot or one shot a big task in ChatGPT, but you start breaking it down into phases and you run each phase through the best AI for the job. And perhaps you even parallelize bits of it. So, for example, you could use a custom GPT to write a research brief for a particular area, and then take that research brief and run it through maybe 4 different deep research models, like OpenAI, Gemini, Claude, and who knows, DeepSeek, to do the long form research. So then you have a whole bunch of really amazing, rich, detailed documents with ways to approach that, which you could all pull back into, for instance, Gemini, which has the advantage of a huge context window to condense it all down into one single report. And you could take that and move that into a thinking model to do some deep analysis on it and try to turn that into a detailed product requirement stock. And then you could take that product requirement stock and move it to another model to break it down into user stories and figure out the dependencies between them all. And maybe even build a testing plan. And then you could take that documentation and bring it into your coding model to implement. So that's quite an elaborate prompt chain, but this is the kind of workflow where the power really seems to be at the moment. Um, what I've found is as you get more and more practice at doing this, these techniques, these emerging techniques, you can do a lot more than code. AI can write law as well as code. And I've written detailed legal documents in Cursor, which is an amazing thing to do. You can actually figure out how to unit test them if you think long enough about it. You could send your AI, even ChatGPT, off to multiple websites to analyze the design language of the companies you consider to be in your competitive set, and then use that to create maybe a detailed branding and design guide, like a really, really detailed thing, with maybe some tweaks for the kind of brand colors and style that you're going for. And with that kind of document, you can bring that into a coding model and get it to create beautiful websites for you because it has all that context to run off. But you can move beyond websites. You can get it to create a beautiful deck for you, perhaps, by using Reveal.js. Coding with AI is really a first step. Once you figure out how to do this stuff with code, you can take these techniques, lift them out, and apply them to nearly anything. So let me get the next slide here. Clarity. This is, the surprising things we're finding as we work through this. Clarity is is an interesting one. The Gen AI revolution, you could say, started with this paper in 2017. Attention is all you need. It's a funny title. I think this is something that needs to apply to us humans more than ever, not just AI transformer models. We all have limited time. There's limited people to do the work, and we, with the speed of AI, need to make every hour count as entrepreneurs. So we all need clarity and purpose and alignment like we never needed it before. The enemy is anything that steps in and starts sapping our attention or obscuring our goal or confusing our internal communications. Without clarity and purpose, you may find yourself performing even below the level of ChatGPT, and that's a very depressing and useless place for a human to be. So it's important as you guys get going to make sure you spend time on your team, making sure you are all super clear about what your core goal is and explicitly what you're not going to do. There's going to be lots of unknowns and discovery ahead, but you all have to have that common basis so you're pulling in the same direction. To maintain clarity, I think we also have to stay above the weeds and avoid getting sucked down rabbit holes as we engineers tend to. There's a new phrase, who knows how many weeks it is now? 3 weeks old, perhaps? Context engineering is what we call it. And this is the new art of curating the information diet that we feed into the AI to try to focus its attention on what we think is important. I think there's a lesson in that for all of us. We all need to actually manage our own attention with at least as much diligence as we're learning to manage our AI's attention. Here's one warning from our experience so far. You guys, this means that we've made this mistake in our company, but you guys, you have to be careful to not inadvertently use AI against each other. It's just so trivially easy to use like deep research to generate hundreds of pages of really good analysis, actually. But you should consider it a cardinal sin to ask anyone to spend more time reading something than it took you to create it. When you demand the attention from your colleagues, you have to make sure it's on actionable insights, something short that you're recommending, not on 50 pages of freshly generated deep research. So where should all that documentation go that you produce if it's so good? These deep research reports are often pure gold, and maybe you've spent, or someone has spent kilowatt hours running GPUs to try to produce them. But I think they're not really for humans to read. They're fuel for our AI. We've always produced documentation for our users, right? And we've generally always produced lots of internal documentation for ourselves and our staff as well. But now we're producing documentation for our AI. And I would argue it's actually the most important type, maybe the only type, because if we can make sure our AI is well informed, then it can write the documentation for everyone else. In fact, we can get a virtuous cycle going because a better informed AI in our companies can produce better work and better documentation, and it can build on top of that, more good context for the next thing. I think a good AI-friendly internal documentation strategy is likely going to end up being the hallmark of the AI native company whenever, we really think we understand what that is. The documentation is the core interface between the human team and the AI, right? It's the core enabler for the quality of the AI's work. We all need to be able to expand on it and collaborate on it, hone it, feed it back into the machine. And in my experience so far, most of our existing traditional SaaS tools just actually aren't great for this. Standalone Google Docs get lost. Notion and CRM and other SaaS vendors tend to lock data up behind their APIs. What's actually ideal from an AI's point of view is one big folder full of text files, preferably in Markdown format. The LLMs are really well trained on Markdown, and it's a nice blend of something that both people and machines can read and write. You could take a whole folder of markdown files containing all of that deep research, for example, and everything that you've written, and throw it into Git, and you can version it there, and you can collaborate on it. And you could drop a whole folder like that into a coding agent. And if you do that, you can ask your coding agent business questions and marketing questions and get it to come up with strategies for you. Or you could take the whole thing and load it all into a custom GPT or notebook LM and fine tune it. Or you could curate it into a chat GPT or Claude project and then share that across the team as a common resource. But it all starts with having that good, clear, good central documentation strategy in a common format, not locked up behind SaaS vendors. Similarly, if you have a lot of structured data in what you're doing, like maybe you're scraping some data or you've got access to a big data set of some type, I would suggest putting it all into one big database, like Postgres or something. You could self-host it, you could use NeonDB, whatever you like. But the point is, have one big database. And over time, put all of your structured data that you get in your business, including maybe even your own CRM, put it all into that one big database instance. So then any AI you have, any agent you have, can get access to the one database instance and get access to all of your structured data. So you have Git full of markdown files on one side for all the unstructured stuff and all the structured stuff in one big database. And that's your information strategy as an AI native startup, in my view. Now, a few notes in collaboration. You have a lot of this in front of you over the next 2 weeks, I think, using AI at every turn. But I guess it's a warning note, right? AI is screwing up collaboration between humans at the moment. Obviously, it's still vitally important, but the game has changed and our normal collaboration tools haven't caught up. For example, do you want to spend an hour commenting and maybe suggesting edits on a nice long document that a colleague sent you, but was generated by AI? Or if you maybe were asked to review a pull request on GitHub, it's only a few thousand lines long, all generated by AI. Like, like in my view, that's a demeaning and very wasteful way to spend human time, basically marking the machine's homework. Human collaboration between us has to find a way to move upstream. Now, if you're just doing like a one-shot prompt, you could put that in a Google Doc and we could all collaborate on it there, and that's okay. But the problem is that doesn't scale out if you're trying to do something complex like the prompt chains I was talking about earlier. So I would guess that in all of the teams that you form, you'll all have this experience over the next 2 weeks where, let's say, two or more people in each team will do some deep research with a wonderful strategy document, and you'll put them on the table trying to figure out whose is the best. And you'll immediately see that there's no clear way to evaluate which one is the best, or to compare them, or take the best from both and put them together, or to make a tweak and go back from the start and regenerate, but not lose all the good bits, or end up with something totally different. I I don't have an answer to this bit, but I just want to say that as an industry, I think all of us are trying to figure out how we're supposed to collaborate together as humans while working with the AI, and our tools aren't there yet. We're all figuring it out, so you're not alone, I guess. Um, In fact, maybe that means there's just a business idea there, right? The tools for us to collaborate in the AI age haven't been invented yet. Maybe one of your teams is going to do that. Here's something that we found quite hard to figure out as we moved along is to remember to ask this question. Can I AI this? In fact, I think the more experienced you are, the harder it is to remember because it's very easy just to default into doing things according to your existing playbooks. But when you do ask it, it's remarkable how many times you can save days or even weeks of effort. So examples of things, just to try to drive this home. Like basically all research work can be done by AI. You shouldn't be doing it. In many cases, anything that previously you would have given to a consultant or an agency to do can be done with AI. It's just a question of thinking through the prompt chain correctly. So, for example, you could do competitor analysis, or monitor the market for pricing changes once a day, once a week, or get AI to make a short list of startup-friendly bookkeepers in Ireland, or maybe you want to find the top 20 VCs in London who recently invested in your domain, along with the contact details. Or perhaps, let's say, top influencers and blogs and social accounts that you could help that could help you market your product. And that's before you even get into multimodal models that can literally see and look at web pages and images and photographs and videos and even make aesthetic judgments. Can you AI it? Just remember to keep on asking yourself that question. And here's a classic one. Many of you will know these, many of you won't, I guess, right? The lean startup movement um, is basically what the SaaS era kind of ran on, right? And it emphasized the importance of a fast feedback loop when you're building a startup company, with the user helping guide the product towards product market fit. Well, with AI now, we can do a lot more of this. You can throw together an actual working functional prototype in no time and get that in front of your users. Your users will always respond more meaningfully to something they can pick up and play with and actually use. So I'd suggest you read, if you want to read a book, Running Lean is the shorter one, and it's fine. But here's another tip. Just get your AI to summarize it for you. Or maybe you can keep on going further with this. Get the AI to extract the process from it and give you a plan, and then help you iterate and actually help you run lean. And then maybe use AI to create that functional prototype and put it in front of some people. And maybe make sure to do that on a video call and record the video call, and then get AI to analyze the video and the transcript and find out where they fumbled. And do that a lot of times and get it to find all of the like common places where the users get confused, and then get AI to fix those problems. And basically use AI as much as possible in that tight loop to just accelerate and accelerate and accelerate that feedback cycle. That was never possible before, but it's a possibility that you have now. So I'm going to talk a bit about what to build, um, and then we'll wrap. SaaS is dead. This is Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft. Maybe he was the first one to say it. I like to think that I was the first one to say it, but I guess a lot of people have been saying this. SaaS has had a really good run. Basically, it was fueled by the emergence of cloud computing, and it itself fueled this massive growth in the VC industry, like maybe like 8x or something over the last 15 years, and generally helped us all digitize business and our personal lives. But people are saying SaaS is dead. This is like a major change in the market, really affects what you're going to build and what you shouldn't build. So let's talk about it a bit. The main reason people are saying SaaS is dead is that AI doesn't need any help to use a database. Most humans do. And most SaaS products were just database wrappers, a nice UI to help a human create, update, read, delete a database. So if you believe that the workflows that are currently performed by humans are going to start getting automated with agents, then it follows that the applications that they use to do that work are going to disappear as well. Now, the first to go are any workflows that involve moving information from one form to another. Like, for example, between Slack and email into spreadsheets or into CRMs or other SaaS apps. Moving information from one form to another, even wildly different forms, is basically really low-hanging fruit for AI. And that's either a threat or an opportunity to you, depending on what you choose to build. There's a litmus test for how vulnerable a SaaS type product is to this kind of disruption. And it's this. Whether it's something you're intending to build or whether it's something you perhaps intend to attack. Imagine what that product looks like if you rip the user interface right off of it and expose the naked API underneath it. Like, does that product, just the APIs, still make sense as a product? Is there enough there for it even to be justified to continue to exist? And that's basically how agents are going to consume it, right? So to agents, all SaaS products look like a collection of APIs. And in many cases, when you look at it, a lot of SaaS products just look like create, read, update, delete a database. And the agents are going to simply skip it. Anyway, SaaS is dead because also it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because VCs think in a 10-year horizon. They don't see SaaS in that future. And they know a lot of SaaS companies are buying SaaS off each other. So the end might be pretty sudden. So basically, VCs aren't funding it anymore. So SaaS is dead, right? So maybe don't build SaaS, do build agents. Let's talk a little bit about moats for a minute. In startup land, we always talk about moats, competitive moats, things that other people have that we need to get around, things that we want to build as we advance, so other people can't just steal what we've built. In the age of vibe coding, technology moats are basically evaporating. It's becoming approximately free to create software. And if it's still hard today, it probably won't be very hard next year or the year after. It's more than just technology moats. Another popular kind of moat is a network effect or some kind of marketplace that you establish. But they're actually proving to be vulnerable to agents as well, the agents that unbundle them. So for example, if you imagine a personal shopper agent, that could shop for you in Amazon and Temu and AliExpress and Zalando and Etsy and 1,000 other Shopify stores. So merchants don't actually need to be on Amazon anymore in that world. They just need to be somewhere. And there's, an opportunity there for startups that hasn't been there for a long time when that happens. The other kind of moat is data. And data moats still exist, but they're pretty tricky and rare. But if you guys know about some good data, you should start thinking hard about it. Like, do you know where some good data is locked up, some good valuable data that could be leveraged by agents? Or is the product idea that you have, does it have an angle to it where it will generate data as people use it, and you can accumulate that data as a moat, right? If so, maybe that data is really valuable, right? Unfortunately, not all data is equally valuable, but yours might be. And if it's valuable and useful, and you have lots of it, then that could be, a really big business. Um, One way to think about building that business, if you go forward with that, is to put an agent in front of it, maybe fine tune an LLM or put an agent in front of it with a RAG and basically sell access to that. So people don't directly get your data. You're not selling the data, but you're selling access to the benefit of the data. You just got to be careful your competitors don't try to exfiltrate it to train their own agents. Whatever you build, I suggest thinking API first. Right? The world is on a path where your primary user in nearly all instances is going to be an AI agent, and the natural way for it to communicate, like consume anything, is going to be over an API. And I don't care if it's REST or GraphQL or MCP or MCP REST wrapping REST, it's still an API. And for it to work well, you should have a really good API. You should put care and attention into designing it. It should have a multi-layered design, allowing obvious goals to be completed in a single shot by a high-level API call, while allowing the AI to dip in under the hood when it wants to do more granular things. I'd suggest using OpenAPI to document your REST API in detail. And there's a new thing called Arazzo, which we and Jentic are like really behind, which is from the same people who gave us OpenAPI. It's an open source standard for documenting high level workflows that are really useful for AI agents to follow. If you do go down that path, you can get in touch with us at Jentic if you like. We've open sourced a thing called the Arazzo Runner, which allows you to take an Arazzo file, which describes a workflow in JSON, and then just run it deterministically, which you could then host an API in front of, or wrap with MCP if you like. Or you can submit it into Jentic, and then you can connect an agent through Jentic, and it'll get those capabilities. Incidentally, we've also open sourced a standard agent library. So to make it really easy to build a very simple agent, it's less than 1,000 lines of code last time I looked at it. So agents themselves don't have to be too complicated. It tends to be the LLM and the integrations, the tool integrations that make it hard. Here's a note. This is all about clarity, right? Figuring this difference out helped us achieve clarity. I hope it helps you. There's two main different kinds of AI applications people are building today, and it's useful to know the difference so you know which one that maybe you're doing. The first is when the software calls the LLM. This is basically regular old-fashioned software, or maybe a hard-coded automation platform like N8N or Zapier or something like that. You run those, and now they have a new tool, which is to call an LLM at some steps, maybe to extract data from an email. Um, this is really powerful and very useful, and it's pretty safe and reliable and easy to think about. But I'd argue it's actually an incremental improvement because it's still basically just software. It's not very transformative. You still need to build all that stuff, and it can only do what you designed it for. The second category is the transformative one. This is where the AI is running the show. AI is calling the software. The LLM is in the driving seat. It's in charge of deciding what the next step is at each point. And if it likes, it can call regular software over an API. And this is, I think, the transformative meaning of agent when we say it's the year of the agent, because this is the kind of thing, and it can solve problems it wasn't designed to solve, right? You can give it a problem it's never seen before, and it will try to solve it given the tools at its disposal. And that has the potential to replace most of traditional software, and along with it, software engineers, I'm afraid, for all of us, and along with that, technical debt, right? This is like a totally new way for the software and technology stack to look. The problem at the moment is mostly reliability, but that's getting better, and there's approaches, especially if you start combining it with workflows. Anyway, both of these exist. They have their place. They're totally different kinds of things. Know which one you're doing. What to build? I suggest go where no one has gone before. Build what simply wasn't possible 3 years ago. Right. So examples, maybe you build an autonomous agent that does some work that replaces an entire category of SaaS. Or maybe you build something that uses an LLM to adapt itself and personalize itself in real time to its user. Or now you can do data native businesses have really come into their own. So you can just do a data business and sell your API. Or maybe it's a fine-tuned thing. Maybe you know something about a professional niche that most people don't, and you know how to teach that to an AI, right? Highly valuable. Or maybe you go into the infrastructure layer where we are in Jentic and try and build something that will help agents actually run and be faster, better, safer, more reliable. Um, some free ideas. I'd suggest look at that collaboration problem. It'd be great to see that solved. If you can get teams successfully collaborating on prompt chains, and being able to test those and evaluate them and rerun them. Fun name for that would be something like Chain Gang. That's what I was thinking. Or uh, like perhaps think more about the UX paradigm of AI, right? We're still trying to make AI agents work with old UX, and I think it's going to be quite different, actually. It's going to be something brand new there. Things not to build. I'd recommend like avoid GPT wrappers, as you might say, thin wrappers around ChatGPT. If you're doing something that, sure, it might be convenient, but if your users can do it with a bit more effort just by using ChatGPT directly, then it just doesn't have a lot of longevity. It's likely to get steamrolled just by the next model that comes out, or just by your users just getting more familiar with how to use ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever. So be careful of that. Um, be careful about getting inspired from Twitter or YouTube or, all the like tech news that's happening. If you've read it, probably thousands of other people have, maybe millions, and there's just tons of competitors. If you're going to do something that other people are doing, make sure that you can go way, way deeper or have a really special angle. And finally, I suggest be careful about building UIs or spending much time on them. If the UI is for a human, make sure that you think a human is still going to be doing that job in 5 years. Otherwise, that can be quite a distraction. Yeah. Closing in on my last words of wisdom, I recommend do what you know. Right? Many of the best businesses now are going to come, like they're not going to come from people chasing the latest Silicon Valley trend. They're going to come from people who understand the real world problems, have been in industry, and now find themselves with these amazing tools where they can go solve problems they could never solve before. So I recommend look inward, thinking about your previous career and pain points that might be ripe for automation. Consider domain specific knowledge you already know. Um, think like, are there customers out there that you actually understand really well, better than anyone else? Right? Maybe focus there. Or just what's the most boring, repetitive job you saw someone do recently? That's another good place to start. But do what you know. That's an unfair advantage just for you. And use the AI to build tools that you wish you always had. Monetization, please do think about it. I think Brennan covered most of this earlier, so I'll skip over it, except try to think about it when you build your product and let your idea of monetization shape the product as most of its features do. So you're capturing user feedback about what to pay for at that early stage as you move along. So, closing. To close the talk, let me leave you with this. I think we are certainly at the beginning of a new era. All information technology since the printing press has basically been about scaling the distribution of information. But Gen AI is the first technology that's just categorically different, and it's actually about creating information in the first place. And it looks like this is going to reshape not just software, but how we work, the nature of work, economies, the distribution of wealth, organizations, countries. It's going to be exciting and challenging time. Meanwhile, a lot of the traditional gatekeepers are gone. The incumbents are losing their competitive moats. A lot of opportunities are undefended. You have access to the best cutting edge technology in the world right now, equal access to everyone else. And in many cases, startups just structurally have all the advantages to go and conquer. The time is now. So you have 2 weeks. You're not just competing in a hackathon here, you're at the frontier of knowledge. You're teaching yourself not just how to be an AI native founder, but an architect, creator, a 10x team. If you do this right, with speed and clarity and purpose, you might win a prize, but you'll definitely win your future career. So go build something extraordinary and let's shape the future. Good luck.